what are you seeing right now, especially, generative or Gen AI, but also AI more broadly? What is happening in the agricultural sector?
Yeah, we're really seeing quite an adoption of both AI and Gen AI across the sector, being used in a variety of different ways. And certainly, like our organization does a lot of work, as I said, around understanding the workforce demands and where those changes are happening. And through our National Workforce Strategic Plan work, one of our main areas to look at is the impact of digitalization automation. And our research through that is showing that the adoption of AI, generative AI, is having a big impact, not only on the way the work is done and the information that's gathered, but on the skills and resources and people needed in the industry. So as you've pointed out, there's a lot of use, a lot of really good positive use for it, I would say, where, if you think of a farmer planting a crop, now the technology is there that you can really monitor through Gen AI weather patterns, moisture in the air, optimal growing environments and that's outside or in a controlled environment such as a greenhouse. Um, we're seeing equipment now where, you know, it's almost like the technology is moving so fast that it's not necessarily always a conscious decision to start using AI or Gen AI, but you now have a sprayer perhaps that is going along and looking at the plant
Yeah.
and spraying the plant that there may be an issue on, and then not the next. This type of technology has a lot of benefit for agriculture, for food production, for sustainability, for the environment, all that kind of thing. So, we're seeing it in animal production as well. I often give the example of dairy farms that are going to robotics, where you go from a dairy farm that may have a very scheduled morning and evening milking pattern, to robotics now, where the dairy cow has a tag on their ear. When they're ready to milk, they go into the parlor. They're scanned. Their ear tag is scanned. They're given the nutritional mix that is good for that specific cow. They are, their temperature, their fluid intake, what they're producing from a milk point of view is all recorded automatically. A dairy farmer can run that from an app on their phone. So very, very different. Um, but there's some challenges too, and I think we'll probably talk a little bit about that around cybersecurity, ownership of data, um, you know, the amount of data. In many cases, we're talking about smaller farms or smaller production environments where you have just so much data. How do you use it? How do you make sense of it? What's most efficient and effective for your operation? How do you not get overwhelmed by the amount of information that's out there? So, lots of great applications, absolutely, but a bit of caution as well in the applications and how it's used.
There are three ways the research is kind of showing that people are using GenAI tools, especially the publicly available ones. Is they're kind of just putting a prompt in that might not be well constructed, and then they're cutting and pasting. This is certainly not advised, and especially not advised if it's something that's important or for a client, or where accuracy is kind of paramount, because again, it can do what's called hallucination. It can make facts up. It'll sound very authoritative, but if it's not prompted properly, or it's outside of its scope, it will make something up and it will not be factual. So really important to understand. Similar to if you Google something, you also want to know that it's coming from an authoritative source, etc. So there's some ways to minimize that. The best way to use it is really augmenting and using it iteratively. So I tend to use an example where I think of it like having an intern or having a student support my works. And maybe I ask them to do some research on something. They go away, they bring the research back. I review it. I use my understanding and my knowledge. I iterate on it. I say, no, we have to, work more on this area or that area. But I'm not just taking what it's saying. And I certainly wouldn't be using it for anything where I'm depending on some of the factual kind of pieces. And again, this is mostly, again, I'll say in the publicly available large foundational language models, where it can bring so many different perspectives, and it's not tuned to a certain sector. So just really important. Think about it as working. It's very, very useful, but you also have to train it. So if you're using even ChatGPT, there are ways to train it to your voice, to understand, it can understand how to respond to you. There are some preferences you can set, and you can actually train it. So when I started using ChatGPT significantly, I, for example, loaded Magnet's strategic plan, all of our documents, all the different materials. So I gave it the content and information for it to understand. Also, I told it how I wanted it to respond, and so on. So there are things you can do to make it kind of more relevant to you. And if you have the wrong setting, or somebody went on your ChatGPT account before, there's a setting where it can actually, you can even ask it to have respond in mythical or mystical kind of language. So if you do that and you're not expecting it, you might be thrown off a little bit. So just understand that there are some of those settings. We have a website that has some content and material that we've been kind of curating together. You may want to scan. Has some useful links. And again, you're also going to receive the 60-minute course to take as well. So that's all I wanted to present. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen so I can actually hopefully just give me 1 second. And so Jennifer, maybe we could just start just while I'm moving my screens around.
Mhm.